Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome to another DEX Show. My oh my, what an interesting episode we've got planned for you today. But first of all, I am Tom McGraw, and I'm joined as ever by my main man, Tim Flower. What's going on, Tim?
Not much time. We were just talking, but it's that time of year, right? It's starting to get a little chilly, get some snow in the air. I know you guys over in London missed the snow, but it's on its way over here.
Nice. Very snow envious, as you know, always.
Mm-hmm.
And from snow to flow, Tim. How's that for a segue?
That's a good job.
A rhyming segue. Not a lot else that makes sense of it, but the rhyme is a strong one, I feel. And look, if people follow Nexthink, as I guess many people who listen to the show do, they're probably aware of the launch of Flow, which took place officially at Experience London, that Tim and I were at and privileged to be a part of, and it caused quite the buzz, didn't it, Tim? Quite the buzz.
Absolutely.
People were excited. Now, Tim, I have to admit, I find Flow a difficult thing to describe of all our products. I just feel like I'm saying words when I start to describe it. It feels like such a practical tool. Go on. You take the lead.
No, but what's in your IT career, there are moments where you see a vendor bring something out that make you just sit back and say, holy cow. Yes. Imagine what I could do with that, right? It opens up. What I love about IT is the creativity that you can bring to the job. And when you look at something and start to imagine the possibilities, and that's what Flow is. It's hard to define and describe, but when you know what you want to accomplish, it's pedal to the metal.
So it's too new. That's what my whole issue is. Words are not adequate to describe something so novel, something along these lines. Well, let's not hope that is too true, because we are going to attempt to really, really unpack Flow today. And we're going to be doing it with a fantastic guest who has a lot of first-hand experience of it. He's Jason Bentz. He's Design Experience Senior Manager for Global IT Metrics and Global IT Metrics Lead, at Accenture. Jason, welcome to the show. How wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
And you were also at Experience Boston, I believe.
Yes.
Doing a fantastic kind of on-stage demonstration of Flow, or of your experience of using it at Accenture. So we kind of faced with a novel challenge of having to describe it conversationally today, Jason, don't we? And how do you feel about that challenge? Do you feel like you do better than me in terms of conveying it purely to the ears alone? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. We've been lucky to be part of the pilot and give a lot of good feedback to Nexthink on what we were seeing, what we liked, what we would like tweaked. Mm-hmm. It was a great experience to be in. So through that process, that's how I got to Experience Boston. And they're like, hey, would you like to do a demo of it? I thought it would be kind of fun. And a lot of what you saw on the screen in the presentations were a lot of just video recordings of it, right? And when I got up there on stage, we actually built one in front of everybody to show the ease of it. So
yeah,
definitely can speak to it.
Very cool. And look, let's give a little overview of your role and the scope of your user base and responsibilities, if you would, Jason, because I think Accenture is like our largest customer, and it's 750,000 endpoints. It almost sounds like a typo, Jason. Right. That is a lot of people you're looking after there. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So I run our endpoint analytics shop. So we are in charge of telling people what is good. That's what we're trying to define. So as our CIO comes to us, as other people come to us, they're like, hey, we need to measure whether this project was good. We need to measure whether our endpoints are good, whatever it is. So that's how I got pulled into the Nexthink project about 2 years ago. We were going out trying to find vendors that could help us define good. And through that, we really leveraged the DEX score. and we could talk more about that too. But we leverage the DEX score from Nexthink to give us a definition of what is a good experience for an employee, what's a neutral experience, and what's a bad experience, and that's how I go back to my CIO, and now we can say, hey, look, we have historically measured our tickets based on how many people call service desk, but for anybody listening to this call right now, you would know that there's a lot of people out there who are tolerable to their endpoints. So at least I have a computer to do work, so it's not that bad of an experience. The same thing with their phones. I don't want to buy a new phone, so I'll just use this one till I can get there. So measuring it by tickets to me didn't seem like the best way to go, and I'm a data guy, so that's huge. So we leveraged it to really show an eye-opening experience. I think last year's experience everywhere, I mentioned to everybody saying, you can't unsee what you've seen. That was my quote from last year when we did it in New York. So that was a huge thing for me. And that's why I got pulled in to run Nexthink at Accenture for, 750,000 devices. It sounds like a beast, and it is, but Nexthink really does make it run a lot easier through the portal system we have set up. And now we're in process of moving to Infinity. So those of you who are in Boston got to see my joke. We have Project Lightyear is what we're calling it, because we're going to Infinity and beyond. So I like to have fun at work, and that was the shirt that I wore at the conference too.
Superb. 750,000 endpoints or users, and as I understand it, Jason, your own background is an IT. So I got to ask, how do you go from a background not in IT to overseeing nearly 1 million people's digital experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And sometimes it becomes the elephant in the room because everybody's like, they start firing like, let's talk about MDE. Let's talk about this and Tanium and this and that. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. My background actually comes from data. So like I was mentioning before, when I first started, I actually started in customer service way back in the day, just because I liked the roots experience where you learn from ground up. So learning from taking calls to configuring the system to testing the system. And then ultimately I've been a data person for probably about 15 years now, to age myself a little bit. And that's how I got pulled into this project, though, is because we ran a very large data project at Accenture. And they said, hey, you really can, build the foundation, really see the front end. Can you help us define what's good? And that's when I got pulled over to internal IT. And I really think it's great for anybody who's never wants to push the limits of what they want to do, right? You don't have to be a techie person. You don't have to know all the infrastructure to move forward. I think it's actually better I don't, because then I can challenge them on stuff. I'm like, well, I don't get it. What do you mean it does intrusion detection? Or what do you mean it does blocking or group policies and all that stuff like that? Because it just adds more to your tool belt. That's what I like to call it. So I call it, I have a tool belt that has quite a bit of stuff in it that I can use. I don't know everything about a lot, but I know a lot about everything. So.
And it's interesting to consider the fact that a non-IT background does open your perspective. You're not coming in with some kind of predefined notion based on the technologies that you know of what DEX is, right? It's a fairly new discipline and an IT segment. We're seeing lots of different definitions of what DEX is, depending either as a customer on what your goals are, or as a vendor on either you mold the definition around your own capabilities or what you think your customers need. Talk about the collaboration at Accenture with Nexthink and your general approach to DEX. What are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish with the collaboration?
Yeah, good questions, Tim. So at Accenture, what we've done is we have brought in DEX. We have made some tweaks to it. So it's not the out-of-the-box version, but again, 750,000 endpoints across global. So we had to make a couple changes to it. Not a lot, I would say, but we really wanted to focus on the fact that we run a very giant compliance engine behind our system. At the conference I mentioned, the only time I want to be mentioned in the news is because our stock price is rising. I don't want to be in there because we had any kind of compliance issues. And we take compliance very, very seriously. Like once a month, people are taking tests and you're constantly being phishing tested and stuff like that at our firm. So through that process, a lot of what we're doing is taking the Nexthink to help us with compliance a little bit, but also help us get the DEX score. Like I said, we were trying to define good and let everybody know, hey, just because they don't call the help desk doesn't mean we have the best fleet in the world. And through that process, we have put together a DEX program. And in the DEX program, if you're in the higher buckets, we definitely don't look at you as much because you're actually having a really good experience. But as we start looking at some of the other regions and countries where they have ISP issues and stuff like that, we really have to focus on that, because if the ISP can't give them, so internet service provider, so if they can't give them, the right bandwidth to run things, then we have to make sure that we maximize everything in the endpoint to allow for that throttling. These are all new fancy terms I've actually learned in this role over the past year. So, going through that, we really have been leveraging the DEX score to kind of bucket our company up and say, okay, look, the new term that I gave Sam the other day is no computer left behind, or no endpoint left behind. So that means if you're below a DEX score of a 4, that we are aggressively trying to get you above a 4. So we've got all of our different regions out there working through the scores, looking to see what's causing it. Is it our bad? A lot of it honestly is people just not rebooting their computers. So we're forcing them to reboot their computers. We do pushes once a month for any new pushes for updates to your OS, updates to Chrome, Edge. We try and keep that on a monthly basis because we want to try and control that as much as possible. But if you've been to some of the meetings that I've been in, you've heard that we have 86 different versions of Teams out there. That's pretty brutal. But we also expect to have at least 10 different versions of Teams because we are a Microsoft partner. We have alpha, beta, and then we have intro as well, where we've actually been on the versions of Teams that are being pushed out right now. We've been on them for a year and a half. So we had like a lot of our avatar bots and stuff like that are now getting launched to the companies. We've been playing around with the avatar bots now for a little over a year and a half, and we get to test it out and have a really good partnership with Microsoft as well. But leveraging the DEX platform and then talking with Nexthink, it was great because we could make tweaks and changes to it to make it fit our case. With compliance running so hot in our machines, I don't want to penalize the overall machine because we are doing all that compliance on it. So we made some tweaks there. We also made some tweaks by regions. So we took a look at, someone in India versus someone in the Philippines versus someone in the US. Again, that ISP is very different. It seemed to balance out post-COVID. So if anything good came out of COVID, it looks like internet service providers have really stepped up their game to help us all work from home now. But there's definitely been some challenges.
So talk a little bit more about compliance, because it's the same kind of term, even though it's been around for decades. We've talked about compliance for a long time in IT. It's the same as DEX. The definition of compliance depends on your role, what you're trying to accomplish. Is it an IT policy, like you have to reboot every week? Is it company policy where you've got certain things set? Is it software license policy and compliance? Is it security policy? So when you have a workforce that big, managing compliance across 750,000 and probably a pretty unique definition of compliance has got to be complicated. Talk a little bit more about what compliance actually means for you. What are you trying to tackle as you go after that kind of elusive word of compliance?
Yeah, great question. And everybody does kind of different. They differentiate what they want to be compliant, right? We're very aggressive, and we move very quickly. So a lot of people are like, 750,000 devices, that probably takes months and years to roll out compliance. We're in the process of doing upgrades to it right now, and our timeline is 4 months. So we have come in, we have a tool, it's called PMT, so it's called Protect My Tech. And what that application does is it monitors roughly anywhere from 60 to 80 different checks in your computer. So we're not talking like 4 or 5, we're talking almost 100 checks on your computer every day it runs. We even have some tools like Tanium that do intrusion detection. Like the second you open up a program, boom, it's running a check. But with great responsibility, you've got everything going on in the machine. Like I was mentioning before, because we have all this stuff running in the machines run slow. So the compliance checks that we do are everything from, are you on the latest version of Edge, Chrome, Are you on the right OS version? Are you, and it's N-2 usually, so within the last 2 versions. We also go out there and make sure you're not on a vulnerability version. So if we get notified, hey, N-1 is actually a bad version, don't use that, get out of that version. We have that run into our script. We have scripts running to make sure you're on the latest versions of MDE, of all the different Taniums and things like that. And then how often do you reboot? We check that as well, because we want to make sure you're refreshing as fast as possible. That's actually, it's the old joke about IT Desk. I called IT Desk and I said, did you reboot before you started anything? The more I learn about IT, getting back to the not IT background, the more I laugh, because I'm like, it actually 98% of the problems are gone when you reboot, because you just don't have a refresh PC. And the joke I always say to my team is like, hey, have you guys ever rebooted your phone? And they all just stare at me and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's a computer. And imagine what happens when you reboot your phone. They all do it while we're on the call and they're like, oh my God, it's so much faster. So it's kind of a fun joke, but it's real. It's real out there. So we run all these checks out there every day. You need to be compliant. But then, so we're also a consulting firm at the end of the day too, right? So we don't just make products. We don't just come up and help clients do their day-to-day stuff, but we do a lot of consulting on that side of it too. And some of our clients aren't a stickler for stuff that we have, right? Or maybe they're on a different version of something. They don't want to use Teams. They want to use anything else out there that's a different platform. Like for instance, right now I'm on Chrome right now with you guys. I can't tell you the last time I've used Chrome, because I've done the Edge move. Now that we're a Microsoft predominant shop, I've been really focused on Edge, making sure that Edge is running smoothly, since we're asking most of our employees to use it. So we do have vendors and our clients coming to us saying, hey, we really need you to use different versions of stuff. And we use it. So we have, these things called exceptions, which everybody from my company who listens to this call are going to laugh, because they know that this is like the dirtiest word in the book for me. This is like swearing on a call for me, is saying, oh, we have an exception because this client wants us to be able to use our USB ports to do storage, or they want us to be able to use this version of Chrome or X, Y, and Z. And we have to change on the fly and create these exception rules to say, okay, well, this person needs to be 83 compliant, but the 84th compliance, the client says they don't want that compliant, that it's compliant for their needs. They write it off in their contract. I still kind of argue sometimes, saying, you know what, that's great, but it's my PC that's you're using. So if I get breached, who's I go down with you. So we definitely work through that a lot. But that's definitely our compliance model. So this tool right now today goes out there and grabs all these compliance checks and then displays it for you as a user. But today it says like, oh, go into your DOS shell and run all these scripts. Like, how many people know DOS shell? I used it because I was a coder back in the day. But if I was in IT, I would have no clue what they're trying to tell me to run. So we've actually been revamping it now. And this is one of the beauties, back to the partnership with Nexthink, is now we're leveraging Nexthink to be our cloud source for data. So Nexthink is now going to be running those 84 checks for us, sending that to our data lake. And then our app is going to be looking at those checks to then say, okay, based on these checks that Nexthink has done, based on these different people who have exceptions, now we're going to go ahead and send this back to Nexthink to run remediations. So it's a pretty slick system we have set up. And this is something that where we can talk about flow, is why we're looking at that now, is because we want to now start looking at how do we get it out of going into our data lake and processing. Anyone who owns a data lake, if you don't know, it's not the data that's stored in lake. We always use the joke, it's pennies on a dime or nickels on a dime, whatever, to store the data there, but it's actually processing the data that is horrendously expensive. So you data storage for like $10, data process for like $1 million.
Yeah. So I almost envision a sign on the wall similar to you see at a construction site, right? X number of days since the last safety incident. How do you judge or gauge the impact of compliance on a DEX platform overall? Is it really just that simple?
Yeah, I mean, here's the beauty of it so far, is that I'll say we over-engineered our compliance. So we had lots of duct tape. We had all kinds of stuff out there and some stuff that was never used anymore, right? So the whole days of the wormholes and all these back end problems that were coming up, we put duct tape over it to make sure that it was strong enough to hold and keep us compliant, but it wasn't the best coding, right? But we had to do it on the fly, and we could never, because we're an internal IT shop, we have to serve clients as well at the end of the day, because we get brought into all the clients discussions because we're client zero. So we drink our own wine or eat our own dog food, all the jokes there. We make sure we test it before we go to our clients with it. And our compliance model, while very rigorous, the beauty of it, again, merging with Nexthink now, is we've got that chance to go back and clean everything up and start making it cleaner, so that if someone gets it, they're not like, wow, what is this coding? I have no idea where you're trying to go with this. And then try and, understand based on all the comments and the notes too. Being a former coder, like the amount of comments I put into things, I probably like made people like go nuts when they look at it. They're like, okay, I get what you're trying to do. Why were you doing this? Still, they don't get that, right?
So, Jason, back to the original challenge here, which is to convey flow without visual aids, as it were. Say you're talking to a peer, never heard of it. How do you put it in a nutshell?
Yeah. So the concept of flow has been around forever, right? It's workflows. So you want to create a workflow plan. You want to be able to execute things. You really want to, the foundation's been out there for a long time, but I think where flow, the best way to explain it is it's getting something accomplished in a system, and giving it, I like to look at it as a tree, right? You got your branches that kind of spawn off from the tree trunks to let you do different things with it. So it's an if and then statement, but it really powers on AI. So it lets the computer do all the work for you. So I don't have to do it as a human. I don't have to be like, oh, let me see if they're compliant here, compliant there. But so what flow does is it pulls all that together. And I think where the wins of flow come in my mind is the ease of it, the way that you can visualize it, the way that you can get in there and anybody can kind of work on it. You don't have to be a master coder to do it. I think the big joke on my team is they say, well, if Bentz can do it, anybody can do it, because he doesn't have the IT background and he's still able to code with flow. And then the other thing that we're working with really closely that hasn't been launched as part of it yet, but is coming is the data points that come out of it. So right now in our PMT modules, we can tell people, hey, here's where you are. You're not compliant. You're in the process of being compliant. And through some querying, we can get about where you are in that process. Like, did we push a package out to you? Have you received it? Has it been run? We can get that data. But the beauty of Flow and Nexthink is that we are going to be able to tell where you are at any given point in time within like 15 minutes, roughly, like near real time. And that's where it really becomes super advantageous to someone like me measuring that information is when I run the flow, I can build the flow. Like I said, it's pretty easy to build. The way I look at it and the way I told it to some of the other clients when I was sitting at Experience Everywhere is it reminds me of the old SQL Server. So SQL Server, we would go in there and code all that SQL and get it all set up. And then about, maybe 2010, 2015 or so, one of my friends, one of the new hires came in and he was a butt in my mind. And he was like, hey, I really need help with SQL Server. And I heard that you're like, that was one of your things back in the day. And I'm like, yeah. And I look at him like, what are you doing? You're dragging in blocks. You're dragging in these big, coding things. I'm like, that's awesome. Like that would take me 20, 30, maybe an hour to code all that stuff that you just dragged a box in for. And then you just enter in different variables and it's all done. So that's I think where there's a huge win in flow, because in the demo I showed, if you ever want to go back and watch the demo, it's up on the page, but you drag a box in and then you just add the variables and then you're done. And then you move on to the next stat. So you're talking about hours of time saved on the original coding, but even more so when you go in there to debug it, you can go in there and look, and you only look at variables. You don't have to look at like what the actual box, as I like to call it, did or does. It does that whole flow for you. And then you can link it to everything. So you can link a remote action to a campaign, to running more remote actions to fix the computer. So in the compliance box, I can run the remote action to say, are you compliant? Okay, yes or no. So yes, you're compliant. Okay, done. And then I can, in the future, like I said, we're trying to work on right now is when that box says end, I can now measure that end box to say how many people automatically went through the flow and were compliant. And then how many people, when they do the non-compliant flow, what did they touch in that flow? So did we run a remote action on them and clean them up right away? Yes or no? Did we have to go to a campaign to talk to them? Yes or no? Did we have to open up a ticket on them? Yes or no? I can track all that in flow going forward. And that's the beauty of flow to me. I'm a data guy, right? So now I've got all my data points. I can go back at any point in time and say, hey, CIO, here's how we're doing with compliance within a 15-minute window. It's pretty slick. And then the other components are, one of the things that we actually suggested during the process is naming the ends of the flow different, because originally it was just, okay, end. So that was it. But by changing the way that we name the end state, now I've got that measurable component to say, oh, they ended at compliant, they ended at campaign. And that's really where you have that transparency to your firm or your company at that point on a Nexthink dashboard. You don't have to send Power BI reports. You don't have to go to the lake anymore. You can do all that in Flow.
And talk us through your very first encounter, Jason, and how it struck you.
Yeah, so the very first one I ever ran was my most favorite one, and this is the one I did the demo on. It's like, how do I get people to reboot every 7 days? So it has a 7-day check in there. And so I ran the very first one. I just said, have you rebooted in the last 7 days? Yes or no? If it's yes, completed. If it's no, then send them a campaign message saying, hey, you need to reboot your computer. And then I run another check after that, another remote action saying, okay, did they reboot their computer after I told them? And if they did it, then that ends the flow. And if they still didn't do it, then I send them a nastygram, as I like to call it, saying you need to reboot your computer now or else. And then it runs yet another remote action to make sure that they did it, and then closes it out. But the beauty of Flow was that was just like the black and white of it, right? So what we did is we actually added some gray area to it, or added some color to it, and said, all right, that was the first crack at it. Pretty easy to do. Now let's say, did you have a pending Windows update? So if you had a pending Windows update, then now you could do this versus, make it more urgent, because we know you're going to have problems with your computer because you have a pending update. And we really started working on the flow, and within 15, 20 minutes, we were right back where we had a whole flow ready to go, as opposed to hours of drawing up on the board and creating all the code and everything like that. Again, it gets back to the ease of doing it and just how powerful and quick and easy, and the UI is just so easy to use. I can't emphasize that enough.
You've touched on a couple of things, Jason, about that I think are worth highlighting. The biggest one for me is that the notion of low code, no code, for me, frees up somebody that is a logical thinker to focus on the logic and the creativity of the problem you're trying to solve versus, do I have syntax right? Do I have the language right? Do I, what is it about my code versus the logic and the outcome that I'm trying to achieve? So that creativity, I think that the fact that you can go in without having to worry about the technicalities and just focus on creativity, I think is big. And I love talking with folks about that creativity. Like I said at the top of the show, in solving technology problems and how creativity applies to the solution. So talk about a little bit about flow in action. How is it actually, you talked a little bit kind of, I think, on the edges, but how are you looking to improve compliance at Accenture? And maybe we can bounce a few ideas back and forth with you.
Yeah, definitely. So the route is that we're moving to investigate what we're calling black box, meaning that we could have everything flow through Nexthink and nothing go into our data lakes and be processed, because that's where our money savings, like I said before, is that it costs so much money to run. Because we're not talking 20,000 PCs being dumped in data. You've got 84 checks that are probably bringing down, we'll just say, for ease, 500 data points. So those 500 data points go into a data lake and sit there. That's fine. But when we start running checks on that, running, Splunk or any of the other tools against that, everybody knows consumption models are the worst because they're the ones that spend infinite amounts of money. It's not bad for a 20,000 PC shop, but it's horrible for a 750,000.
I can't imagine. Pay by the bit.
Yeah. And when we start running through, a lot of people are like, oh, we like consumption models because we only pay when we use it. And I, on the other hand, am like, man, I'm not a big fan because we go from thousands of dollars to millions of dollars real quick when we start running processes. So it's tough there because I have to worry about spend on processing. So that means I have to cut processes that I may or may not need. And the beauty of flow is I don't really have to cut those processes, right? I can go ahead and run all that flow through because it's sitting in the Nexthink cloud today, and I can run the processes against the cloud. The other beauty about that is that I'm not running against the person's PC, right? So I've used the term run compliance by dripping. I think that was the thing I got yelled at by Sam last year, so hopefully he's not listening to this. But it's ultimately what it is, right? So you take the data, you drip it in the cloud, and now we run everything in the cloud. You're not hurting that person's PC.
You're not, but you're also running your compliance analysis against the most current version of the data and not what is stagnant or delayed and sitting in the lake.
Correct. Yeah, dead on right there, Tim. So we're we call it near real time. So within like 5, 10, 15 minutes, we're running compliance in that person's computer, and we're not waiting to the 24th hour. And then, God forbid that you weren't compliant, and then you have to go in there and be compliant, and then you didn't know shell. So you have to wait till tomorrow to run the next check, and you're like, oh, I didn't do it right. So now I got to do it again. Where in Flow and with Nexthink, we're able to do that within real time. So you run the script now, or you have the remote action run, and then within 15 minutes, you can go there and be like, okay, I got it taken care of. I don't have to wait till tomorrow and guess. So that's a lot of it. Setting up all those flows, but you talked about the partnership too. So what we're looking to do is actually have the collector itself. We're looking at the collector and saying, can we have the collector on the machine say whether or not you're compliant? Because there still is going to be a problem at the end of the day, right? We can't run 750,000 flows times 83 daily.
Right.
There's no way that's going to happen, right? That's just that someone at Nexthink is going to stare at their screen and be like, oh my gosh, we're so close to capacity. We're so close to capacity, right? So if we can get the collectors and the endpoints to do minimal checks, just do some checks to say compliance checks on it, it's not going to run the computer as hot as it runs today. The joke I say is our compliance is actually what keeps our homes warm because it runs so hot and it takes so much CPU power, it burns your fan out in your house, right? Which is fine in Christmas right now, in the wintertime right now. It's not so great in the summer when you're sitting there in the 90-degree weather. So as we can get the collector to kind of do some of that work that we're doing the partnership now, then that collector then sends it to Flow. Flow runs all the processing for us. And then the first part is the AI of Flow, right? I like to say it's kind of like AI in my mind because it's the computer doing all the work for you. It's doing the checks, it's doing the runs, it's running the remote actions, it's telling the employee what to do through a campaign. So I'm going to call that AI stream and let that run. But it also lets me measure that AI stream. That's where my power comes from because I'm not using as many employees to do the job. That's awesome. So that saves me some money. But it also lets me know where we're at. And if we ever see a hiccup anywhere in the system, like, wow, there's a bunch of people who we tried to run Edge on, and we can't run Edge on them, we can highlight that. And now we can run another remote action to clean up everybody who wasn't able to run through processes, right? A different flow per se. So these are the things that we're doing is not only making it for compliance. So we've got your 83 workflows that can run for compliance, but say if something fails for compliance, I can have a developer in the United States or India or Philippines who are out there go into Flow and create a flow that fixes something that's broke and then run it on a workforce because we were able to see all those people, to your point, real time with the problem.
It sounds like you're using a fairly mature level of to engage with those 750,000 people. How aware are they of your compliance programs? And are you finding their awareness is actually helping with compliance, that they're doing more of their part to keep things where they should be?
Yeah. So It's pretty painful, I'll be honest. So right now today, they if they know of PMT, they're like, oh my gosh, it's terrible, because it's one of those things where if it's silent, that's awesome, because that means you're doing your job. You're rebooting your computer, you're taking your patches, you're logging into your computer. But it's one of those things like a car, for instance, right? Your car is the greatest car in the entire world until the check engine light goes on. You're like, oh man, now what's wrong? I got to go get it analyzed. I got to go take it in. Now it's going to cost me money. You know, it's a pretty brutal process at that point. So our workforce knows they need to be compliant, because if you're not, we turn off your ID, and that's brutal, right? So, and that's end stage. We've actually, because of the power of Nexthink, we've actually gotten to new levels of saying, hey, maybe we give them warnings earlier, and we do some throttling. So we send information back and forth to Tanium, or we send information back and forth to Intune to limit some of the stuff that they do, but we don't lock them out of their computer. Because what's the worst thing ever is you take a consultant who bills a client and you turn off their access. Now they no billing at all that day. That's brutal. So that's the other thing that we're trying to do with Flow is, how do we go from we've already been flowing through this today, but how do we make it more efficient to say, let's turn off some access and not all access? So let's slap them on the wrist, but not let them get away with murder, but slap them on the wrist and not take away their work, right? Because if I have, that's the last thing I want to do is have a managing director come to me and say, hey, Benz, I have 5 people sitting on the bench right now because you turned off their computer access. And then I have to go back to them and say, well, that's because they didn't reboot their computer. But I don't want to fight about it. I just want to take care of it.
Jason, you're obviously very hands-on with innovation. You're
yes,
rolling up your sleeves here. But when you look at the implications around AI, the sort of fast evolution of data, these kind of beyond automation technology that we're seeing emerge, how do you see it impacting your new, as it were, career, like the space you find yourself in over the next few years, IT?
Yeah, I think if you haven't heard, Accenture is pouring billions of dollars into AI right now. And the reason why, again, one is for us to save money, but it's for our clients to save money too. So when we create code, we push it out to our clients to save money as well. So the thing with AI is, it's always been like a very scary avenue. It's like walking on ice, right? You're like, okay, well, let's do it. But there's always this nasty word like discrimination testing out there, making sure that AI isn't making decisions that you don't want it to make based on data that you don't want it to have. So I think people have gotten much, much smarter with how they leverage AI and how they use it, how it works in databases, how it recognizes certain issues and says, oh, I've seen this issue before. Let's go resolve it. I think it's really going to be very powerful. And what I say to people is, look, I'm not in the business of replacing workers and getting workers out of the company. Like my intention has never been to come in and say, hey, if you use Nexthink or you use Flow,
you don't work in HR, Jason. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just in general, right? Like,
no offense
I don't want
HR
IT people either. Yeah. So, yeah, what I want to do is I want to make people smarter. I want them to do what we want them to do. I don't want them working on little errors, or, to your point, Tim, earlier, syntax issues, right? Like, how many times have you kicked yourself when you used a comma or a tick mark on the wrong spot? And you're like, oh man, that was what screwed up all that code. If I can take that away from the worker and make it smarter through AI, then I can have that workforce, as we say, shift left, right? I can make them say, here's all the things that really bother me that I've always wanted to fix, but I couldn't fix because I was doing busy work all the time. I want to be more creative. I want to be more architectural. I want to take us to the next level of our endpoints and really work through that. And that's what my team loves to do, is think tank. I think that's where we actually make more money think tanking than we do executing, because it's really about how do we get creative with our clients? How do we leverage what they use? How do we leverage things like Nexthink, things like Flow, things like Intune, all these other tools, and put them all together to create this big, robust tool that is mostly run by AI. And all you have to do is just watch it, tweak it, and make it bigger, faster, stronger at the end of the day. So I really think the future of AI is going to move us to the next level. It's going to make us faster. It's going to move things through cleaner. And it's going to free us up to do more fun things, as I like to call it, to really challenge our human intuition of something that an AI can't do, but a human can do.
Amazing. I mean, you did a great job there with the power of words, Jason, in conveying your enthusiasm regarding flow and its huge potential. If you were listening and you didn't catch Jason in Boston, not to worry, we'll have a link to his presentation in the show notes to this very episode. And we will also include links to more information about flow. And if it interests you sufficiently, if you want to only believe your own eyes in real time, as it were, please do reach out to our colleagues at Nexthink, who will be only too happy to set up a demo, I think. Now, before we let you go, Jason, with thanks, you have come on at the time of year when we always corner our guests and try and pull a prediction out of them for the new year. So, do you have a crystal ball you could look into, Jason? Is that accessible?
Yeah. So, how do I think next year plays out? Is that where you're going with?
Yeah.
That was
so I think next year. Yeah, I think next year. I think we're like a rocket ship, I think, right now, right? I think so much stuff is going on. I think there's a lot of clutter in our lives. Just to take it outside of work, there's a lot of noise out there, right? And
not one of those exploding rocket ships, I hope.
No, not at all. But there's a lot going on out there, and sometimes it's really hard when you come into work and be like, okay, what do I do today? Where do I go with today? Like I said, I think AI is going to open up possibilities to let humans really do what they do best, and that's be creative, really step outside the box. It's going to give us that freedom to do that. I think one of the things that's going to be interesting to see is you've heard a lot of company layoffs in the past couple of years, right? This year especially. And what I'm seeing out there is there's a lot of talented people who are not ready to give up. So they've been out there in their companies for 20, 30 years. And they're now looking for new work. And I think that's going to be interesting to inject those people into different companies. And it's going to be another year of mixing things up. So I predict a year of storming coming up our way, where people have always done the same thing the same way for a long time. I think that's one of the challenges with the people who worked here for 20 years. Some of the people who just do IT, I come in and I just, get crazy in the room, and everybody's like, okay, you need to sit down and let's talk about this realistically for a second. But I really think storming, I think, is my word for 2024. I think you're going to see a lot of things shake up. I think you're going to see people coming into companies and opening eyes and be like, oh, I never thought about that. And things like Nexthink, things like Flow is going to really open up people's eyes. I think you're going to see a competitive market come around that because, Nexthink is really starting to break ahead of the pack, but there's competitors out there who are going to have to try and stay with you guys. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great because that's a healthy competition that I love to see. Yep. And Microsoft loves to leverage that as well. So again, we're a Microsoft shop, so we constantly challenge them, and things that we're seeing here in the next couple of years is going to be huge. So yeah, I think hashtag storming for 2024 is what my prediction is.
I like it. Very positive note, Jason. I don't think we've had such an optimistic, rousing prediction for the new year yet. So, and thanks once again for a really passionate and fascinating unpacking of Flow and what you're doing with it. I hope that goes from strength to strength in the new year. And I hope we can have you on the show again sometime, Jason. It's been great to have you.
It'll be my pleasure. It was a great time hanging out with you guys.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.